Just where I'm at the point right now is just trying to really stay in my lane and be in tune with myself as much as possible and realize that not everyone thinks like I do. Not everyone's gone through what I have. Not everyone thinks like I do, and that's okay. I need to stay true to the beliefs that I have, the path that I'm going down, still love everyone around me, and they shouldn't change my trajectory, and neither should they. But I shouldn't hold resentment if they're frustrated or they're just wanting the best for me. I just need to show them love. Recognize that. Thank you for thank you for showing love for me, but I'm happy with where I'm going. That's a hard thing to do.
All right, so we have someone who everyone knows very, very well, one of the founders of Bridge the Gap. You would have heard his voice, seen his face, and fell in love with him. He's the one and only Jarred Brown. Jarred, how you doing?
Welcome to the podcast, Brownie.
It's a
welcome.
Feels different, doesn't it?
This is the first one of us interviewing each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we can really pull each other apart, which is going to be good. So looking forward to the discussion.
What I want to do, and this is really interesting because obviously us being all quite close, being in business together, being best friends as well, and having experienced a lot together in such a short amount of time, we all understand where we're each at to a certain degree. And what I'm excited about is to learn something completely new, and that's something that I'm going to really try and get out. But I saw this post this morning by a friend of ours, Sam, and for some reason it just really it really made me think of where we're all at, and it's something that's very important. I know it's something I've gone through. I know it's something that you've gone through. I know it's something Mitch has gone through. So I'm going to read it out before we do begin. This is your life. You're allowed to change your mind, to change your heart. You're allowed to be a different person, to wake up one day and not want to do the things you've been doing all your life. You're allowed to love who you want, to move on from the people who are not good to you, to let go of anyone without any kind of explanation, without any kind of regret. You're allowed to make mistakes, to learn from them or not to learn from them and experience everything all over again. You're allowed to forget the past if you want to, or to stay in it, but you must also understand that this is not how you will grow. You're allowed to change careers, to dress differently, to chase different dreams, to change locations, even if at first you're terrified to do so. You're allowed to dislike yourself, but also allowed to change those same parts you don't see eye to eye with, to work on them until you're completely comfortable with who you are. This is your life. Make it count. Make your own validation, your own path, your own way of life. You are enough. You are not broken. You're a lot stronger than you want to believe. Now breathe. And I found that given a lot of what's happened, we've at Bridge the Gap have changed a lot. In the last 12 months, we've changed direction. We've put things out there that we've promised and we've taken them back. Things have happened in your business, Jarred, your business, Mitchell, my business. Like, so many things have changed, and it's very easy to feel guilty for that. It's easy to regret that. And it's easy to worry about what other people think of that. And so given our collective experiences, I thought that was very relevant. So with that, we'll dive in because there's a lot that is in Jarred's story that, like I said, I really want to dive into, and there's a lot of shifts and changes and almost identity changes in a way. I feel like I've seen huge identity changes in you, and that's a sign of growth. And not a lot of people do that, not because it's not what you're meant to do, but because often fear holds them back. And so I definitely want to highlight and say that I appreciate that in you. So
Thank you. Appreciate you both.
Yeah. So let's give people a rundown, because you've shared a lot of your story before across different platforms. But to give us a run from the start, like, take us back to school.
Yeah. So I was born in Sydney, came up to Central Coast in like year one, which is 6 years old, 6 years old. And like I had an amazing upbringing, like have amazing parents, and like very, very fortunate, supported me with everything that I've done. But school was always, I don't know, I felt like from the moment you get past that birth state and you start to actually like become aware of like who you are, you start to discover and think about like, what type of person am I? Obviously you're a child, so you don't really like, it's not processed as much as what it is now. But I always felt from a young age I was unique in a different way. Like I felt like I was unique, charismatic, you could call it. But yes, school was tough. Yeah, I remember I had a mate who we both had. Was diagnosed with a level of Asperger's and ADHD and speech therapy when I was young. So I went to speech therapist and I would get Nutella on my tongue and try and pronounce words and couldn't say certain words properly. And still to this day, I struggle with it. But I also think it's part of who I am, and I think it's a reason why people find me funny, talk to, can be open to as well. But I remember like in year 1, year 2, where this kid was so fast. He was so incredibly fast. And we would have to leave before lunch, dot out. And I would used to come home. Mum would pick me up from school every day, white T-shirt from Central Coast Adventist School where I went. And I'd have dirt all over it. Like I would have dirt from the soccer pitch, from the footy pitch, whatever. I was so competitive. I used to get in trouble all the time in primary school, detentions after detentions. And there was a blue card, which you didn't have to tell your parents about. And then there was a yellow card. And I always got the yellow card and I'd stress out. Like sometimes I would forge mum and dad's signature so I didn't have to tell them. And then they'd end up finding out I did in more shit. But I remember it so clearly. It was like 5 minutes before lunch every day. The teacher was like, Jesse, boys, off you go. And we'd sprint up to the office as fast as we could and take like 2 tablets. I didn't even know what they were. It was obviously a way to, deal with our Asperger's, and we weren't different. We just struggled to learn. To this day, I struggle with awkward situations. Like I really struggle in awkward situations. We could be watching a movie and something awkward happens. I'm like, I hide. Like I literally, Tay will back me up. I literally like hide my face. I'm like, I can't even watch this. This is so awkward. And I guess my way of learning is very, very unique. But I'm also think that's a gift. I think that's a huge gift because I don't think the best minds in the world never think inside the box. They always think outside the box. So I look at myself now and I'm actually thankful that I have that because I do have a different way of thinking about things, which, some, as you boys know, are ideas that are very, very reactive and some ideas are fantastic. And I'm an ideas person. Like my brain doesn't stop. So I've come to terms to think that it's not a bad thing. Like I think it's truly a gift that I'm really appreciative that I have.
There's a great quote that Jesse posted, our good friend Jesse from the Flappers Swim Club, that says something along the lines of if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And I think understanding, and one thing we'll dive into because I know this is something that you're very passionate about, is having self-awareness and understanding your strengths and understanding your weaknesses and knowing that your strengths lie in being a visionary and thinking outside the box and wanting to go far, but also understanding that there's a level of that maybe I feel or Briggs feels, or there's other people that can feel those, that can bridge the gap from where it is that we are to where we want to be. And so, but having you there to just come up with these ideas, it's just like,
and my brain doesn't think.
Okay, like that's actually like something I would have never thought of, and like. So let's try and analyze it, and that's where we come in to be able to take that
yin yang,
and to be able to bring it and bring it into something and all be able to work together. So that's a huge part of what you bring, and I think not many people can bring that element as well. What during school, because obviously with those learning difficulties and kids being kids as well. And understanding that kids can be cruel as well. What was it like for you in terms of trying to fit in?
And what age did you find that shift?
I actually found like spelling and grammar is still something that I struggle with. But like I actually found that primary school was like you do your like those little speed tests in maths. Like I was smashing them. Like I was one of the fastest in the class. I'd just be so competitive.
Is it because it's because there's a competition?
100%. And I was actually good at that. But it just like I felt like it became really, really obvious when high school came around and you had things like bod maths and it's like you have to answer it in a different way than it's actually presented and everything starts to go like wow. Like for example, you know the game there's a game, board games like a murder one and you got to find who the murderer.
Cluedo.
Yeah, or whatever it is. I can't do that. Like it's too many things going around in my mind. Like it's just like scattering. And I think when I started on into high school, I actually built a habit really, really early, which was really bad that I cheated in most assessments. Like I would literally be in French and I would cheat off the person next to me.
Because I hated people like you. Fucking hated it.
Maybe, I don't know what it was. And it was hard because mum and dad would always want me to work hard, but I literally, as you boys know, I would go into the study and I'd be like, that fucking wall's a bit darker than that side.
Just mind on it.
Like everything else. Because I'm not interested by it because my brain isn't wired like that. If I get something, if I'm interested about something, you won't find someone that's like more fucking driven to go after that thing. Like I'll throw everything at it, which is a blessing and also something that can work against me too. Yeah. So I think I started to, as I got older in high school, like I started to realize like shit, like just so I didn't have to face my friends on the mark or whatever, I didn't have to tell people. I sort of on the outside acted like I didn't care, but I knew looking back on it now that it did impact me in a way that I just felt really dumb. Like I felt generally dumb. There was one assessment that sticks out and obviously most people, which we'll dive into, I run a gym, so I'm obviously passionate about the health space. And this assessment was like, you got a certain type of person that we all got, and we had to design a training program off that. Got the second highest mark in the class for it, 95. Yeah. So it's like, if I can apply myself to something I'm passionate about, which we're not going to dive into it today because I don't think it's where my value lays, but that's why I don't believe in the school system. I don't think it plays to everyone's strengths. I think it plays to a certain minority of people's strengths. We should be finding out who we are as humans before we go figuring out, you know, bod mass and equations on something that I have never even implemented since I've left school.
Yeah, and it's funny. I think that is becoming, people are becoming more aware of that in that system, but there is a long way to go. But it's interesting. You said like primary school is actually quite easy, and that's because often the teachers are much more they accept that level of imagination and they adapt to that, whereas as soon as you get into high school, I feel like that's just gone. Like that creativity, that imagination, that just wanting to learn in a different way, it's just not accepted.
Great point.
And and I completely understand that. I mean, I kind of adapted probably better, but when you think about it now, it's like you feel you're the big fish in a little pond, going into a little fish into a big pond at the point in your life where puberty's kicking in, like 100%. Things are changing, like you're having identity crisis, and I mean
they make it obvious too. Like I almost feel like it's traumatizing for the kid because they get scared about going to high school because they make it very clear that it's very different. It's just 1 year a little bit older. But it's actually not that bad. And if we look at the conditioning of the brain, our creativity may shine through primary school. So it goes to show that our creativity gets wiped from us from just the way of thinking like, oh, you're now, like, I feel like I've been to university, but I feel like from going from year 6, it's like creativity. Going to year 7, it's like now you're at university. Like it's like we're strict now. Like don't you worry about trying to, you know, be open and creative. But anyway, that's another topic.
Moving forward, give us a little rundown on when sport really became prevalent in your life, and where did you look to excel? Because you're an incredibly resilient person, definitely one of the strongest minds I know in that field. give us a rundown of where footy came in, where the sporting came in, and where that drive, that real competitive, because there's competitiveness, but then there's just fucking resilience. Like, I feel like they're different. Like,
And I feel like did it start as competitiveness and then you've built this resilience from that? Or do you find that you've always been really resilient?
I can't really put my finger on the pulse and pick out a moment or a transition where I felt like it went from one to the other. I was definitely into sport from a very young age. Like, I loved swim. Like, I was a big part in swimming. When we moved up to the coast, I fell in love with obviously doing surf life saving. But back in the day, it was nippers, and we'd always get club champion between me and Luke Pearce, Ryan Pearce's brother. It would always be between me and him, and but then I also loved on the other end, like a huge Cowboys fan. Like, everyone would know, like, I'm a massive and everyone's probably seen me have rants, but like, I love
flashbacks to our little getaways.
Oh, man.
let's play some B-roll right now.
The Cowboys are on tonight.
I loved Matty Bowman, Jonathan Thurston growing up. Like, man, there was no better duo in the game, I don't reckon. Like, Jonathan Thurston chipping and Matty Bowman, he's under the post. Like, so... Like, there was always like other sports like basketball, which I played representative basketball. I played Div 3 for reps, but I was like MVP in that. And I had touch football and OzTAD and all those things. But my two main sports were surf life saving and rugby league, which is quite funny when you think about it, because it's like, one, you need to be strong and need to be in the gym, and the other, you need to have be a little bit leaner on a muscle mass perspective. I was always a pretty big bone kid when I started. Was probably when I started to get to I don't know, going off memory, when I was 10 years old, 11 years old, I started to be a little bit more of a chunky and like nutted, and I was a little bit shorter as well, still am. But yeah, they were my two main sports, and I did extremely well in both of them. Yes, it was competitiveness. Yes, I wanted to be challenged. I had a huge goal. NRL was probably the one that just took over, because I wanted to play NRL. Like, rugby league was, and I wanted to play NRL. Surf life saving, I achieved some amazing results. I got, like top 10s in the state, top 20s, 30s in Australia, a couple of team gold medals at state, like extremely well. And it's a very, very, very hard sport to train for. So it's like, I just feel like you build resilience over time. It's nothing that you can just develop like that. Like, you can put yourself through shit and you can like dip back into the coochie jar from a memory. But I'm slotting like 5-6 swim sessions 4 times a week, backing up and doing like lagoon sprint sessions on our boards where it's competitiveness as hell. Like, and then not in that, with both sports, they're team sports. So you're fighting for the top board relay spot in surf club, or you're trying to make that team in rugby league. So the competitiveness was always there. I don't know where the resilience come from. Like, everything which we'll dive into about the Damon story, I feel like a lot of it came from there, but that came full circle recently too. But yeah, I don't know. I think I was more competitive, but now I've developed resilience, whether that be through business, whether that be doing a 24-hour event, whether that doing the Ironman now. I've always wanted to be challenged, but I'm going to be upfront and honest. Like, a lot of the times I did these things, it wasn't about how I felt. It was about what performance I can get so I can be put on a pedestal, so I can look better. So if I'm actually honest, I don't look at it as a healthy resilience anymore. I just look at it as a way that it was like, fuck, how can I look for others? So looking back on it now, I'm like, did I actually want to play NRL, or was it the title of being an NRL player that I liked?
Sure.
So maybe that was the thing that held me back from actually achieving that thing, because I wasn't authentically wanting to go after it.
Yeah, it's that grandiosity that we chase, wanting to be big. It's like with Bridges Gap, we wanted it to be big, like, and you wanted to make NRL, and all these things kind of line up, and it's like, I want to do it, but I want to be the best at it, and I want to make impact, and I want to be the poster kid and whatever, but. Yeah, that's an interesting thing, and that is a great lead into the Damon story, because thinking on it now, it's like, that's kind of when you went through that, that's when everything, like, you had wanting to be the NRL player, you built that level of competitiveness, and then moving into all the other areas of your life where you wanted to excel. What run us through the Damon story, who he is, was, and that part of your life.
So I was 10. And it's probably made more sense to me when I got a little bit older. But what happened was, the day sits out like anything else. I remember I got dropped off at swimming by, I can't remember who. I think it was dad or mum. And me and my sister Kaylee had received a text message saying, Nana's going to pick you up, or Nana or Papa's going to pick you up. And I was like, now looking back on it, I actually had a gut feeling when that happened, but I didn't put anything to it. I just like, maybe it's just my gut playing up, or maybe I'm at swim training and having butterflies. So looking back on it now, I've been intuitive within myself. That was my intuition actually speaking to me. So we got picked up and we went back to Nana's. We got our stuff for school the next day, and then we woke up getting ready for school, and like mum and dad walked in, and Nana and Papa had put us on the lounge, and dad walked in and Nana and mum walked behind, and mum was just distraught. It was they sat us down, and dad was like, overnight your cousin had been murdered. And Damon wasn't just a cousin, he was like a brother. Like, I knew I was his role model. Like, I would be the one that would do his hair. I used to have a mohawk as a kid, and I'd do his mohawk up, and I'd play the PlayStation with him, or he'd always look up to me in that aspect. I was his bigger brother. It's hard thing to process as a 10-year-old. Like, I don't know how you process. Like, I don't even really have much memory. It's like they gave us the option if we wanted to go to school or not, and I went to school. I remember that day used to be like, that day was filled with the principal and people checking in on me, because obviously they'd heard what happened. The whole world could have seen it. It was all over the news. Like I've seen my mum and my pa and my cousin on the news. I've seen my cousin walk out on the news in a bag. Like, and seen newspaper articles on it. Like, it was, and that whole like next that month is pretty crazy when like it just was. It was a really odd time. Like, everyone was over at our house, and it was like there was really emotion brought in, but I didn't know I didn't know what to think of it because I was 10 years old, and that was a level of resilience that came off me, and I think that has to do with a little bit of the shit I've gone through to get to where I am now. Like, I do have that resilience, and you put me in anything and I'll be able to, like, I've done a 12-hour endurance race before, and I got told about the night before. So I have that resilience and that capability, and I don't know if it stemmed from Damon. It probably did, but I don't think it was healthy. Like, I used to play with his name on my wrist, and I made a lot of big sporting teams like New South Wales, like CIS. I played schoolboy comps for rugby league and whatnot, and I played for him, but whatever you got to do to get the job done. But I don't see it as something that was extremely healthy now looking back on it.
Yeah, and then having the NRL dream as well, and where did that play? Because I want to get a deeper understanding on, obviously a huge NRL fan as kids are. A lot of kids are huge, but wanting to take that next level, take that dream, and then making the transition into then business as the next option. What happened during that time, especially in the pit of trying out for NRL, like at the point where you were really, really trying for NRL? What was that experience like?
It was a very tough time of my life, because you leave school in year 12 and you get told that tradesman or university, and I still stick by my word that I believe that that's our only two options we get given from a society's conditioning standpoint. So I left school, and I didn't know what I wanted to do. All I knew was I wanted to play football. So I was at the time 95 kilos. So I was overweight. So I've been through a 22 kilo weight loss journey, and that all started. You do year 12 fun, whatever it may be, and you end up in schoolies and come back, and I was like, Jesus, like, I'm a big boy. So that was a hard time, and I had this NRL dream. So I unhealthily lost that weight, and I was training like 3 or 4 times a day, 6 days a week to make this NRL dream try and happen, when it was like, I look back on it now, if I had the mindset that I did now, everything happens for a reason. But if I had the mindset that I do now and the skills and resourcefulness that I have now, I probably would have made it because I'm far more intuitive of my body. The only thing that would have held me back was my height, but you can make anything happen. So that year was really tough, the first year out of school. I trained for that as well as doing a little bit of labouring work, and that was like a kick in the guts. It was like, I sure as hell don't want to do this for the rest of my life. So I was like, I want to make this NRL dream happen. At the time, I had my ex-girlfriend was actually to the point where she nearly broke up with me because I was so brainwashed by this football dream. And that really hit me pretty hard. It's like, Jesus, like you're actually replacing a lot of things in your life for this one dream to happen. And I didn't realize the impact. Like I remember going over out for events with say her or her family or mum or dad or other friends. And I seriously would not eat a single thing out of my diet. So I was so determined to lose weight. I was like, man, it was like, but the shit thing is it impacted my mood, which then impacted how I showed up. You can go out and not have that food to eat and be completely okay with that, but still be who you are. But it took that away from me. So that relationship ended up ending, and that was a really, really tough time for me. And it sort of happened around the time where I was training really hard for football, got a knee injury, had knee surgery, and come just out with a couple of trials. So I did have the opportunity to try with Canberra, Rabbitohs, Parramatta, Gold Coast and a few other teams for under 20s trials, and a few of them were invitations, and that was a good feeling, and I thought I played really well with that. But I think the turning curve was one night I had a fight with mum and dad, and I punched a hole in the wall, ran off to my it was very, very, very close, and it's been, and I'll quickly touch on it, but it's been a really incredible time to re-spark my relationship with Jai. And I ran to Jai's house that night in the car and had a chat with his mum and put things into perspective a little bit of like there's more to life than just this football dream. And from then on, I just wasn't determined. I played a couple of games of first grade locally on the coast, but I ended up getting to the point where I was scared to get injured after being injured. And you can't go on the footy field being scared of an injury because you'll attract that injury.
Was that a tough pill to swallow, going from putting everything into that one dream and then needing to, realise that maybe that wasn't the way that you were heading?
It wasn't because I was so comfortable, because I was like, there's more to life than just this football. And it just happened to be at the time I was doing BattleFit. So I had a really great mentor in Andrew Papp, which we're obviously all aware of. We had him on the podcast. So that sort of introduced me into the health space. I fell in love with what Pat was doing. I fell in love with his business, BattleFit, and Pat was like probably my first big mentor in my life. And so I ended up going like, man, I want to make something out of this industry. Like I love this, and that's pretty much where DMR started, which was finished 2000. That was 2006. I had the idea 2015, back into 2015, and started in 2016.
Yeah,
it's cool to see that. Like, we say everything happens for a reason, and you did have this massive goal of where you wanted to head with your life. And like I said before, big flip, but it's taken you down this avenue which you've been in, for the last
four and a bit years. Yeah.
And I know how much you love it, and I know that everyone in your community at the gym there knows how much you love it.
Yeah.
So it's cool to see that you got taken down another way, but the right one at the end of the day.
Yeah, definitely. I'm a huge believer that you can only connect the dots looking backwards. And
yeah, and it's funny, like, because like I've seen Pap train as well, and I've filmed a few of his BattleFit sessions. I was never game enough to actually do them because they were quite intense, especially in the beginning. But you coming off the back of that, it's like, I remember seeing some of the DMR sessions and they were lethal, like really intense. And it's not what it's like now, because obviously it's a completely different messaging and a different approach to the business. But that's it. It's interesting to see what it was back then and how it's transformed. And like you said, you can only connect the dots looking back. And the big thing, obviously DMR, Damon Mark Roberts, that was the name, and the tagline, "What's your motivation?" Which he was your motivation, and so that was a big thing, and obviously linked with that unhealthy need to be the best or lose the weight or whatever. All of that combined is like, when you look back at it now, it's like so many lessons in that, like a massive amount of lessons. And what has the experience been like over the last 4 years from the very start when you had a few boys in the garage? What was the vision when you started it?
I really didn't have a vision. I sort of just went with it as it came. All I knew was, I was going nuts. Toby was my first client, and me and Toby are obviously best of mates now. And I just go hard. Everything that I was doing was a replication of Pat. Everything. Like, I copied and pasted what he did in my own way.
Yeah.
10-week programs. Wonder why everyone by week 8 was so tired, because every session was just stupidly hard. Still to this day, it's hard, but we made sure we balance it out. But I just sort of went with it, and it just grew. I don't know what it was. Maybe it was because it was my energy. Maybe it was the first time the Central Coast have seen like some young kid just go for it. But like within 6 months, we had 50, 55 members. Like it just went like that. And that led to the next thing. Like I had this intuitive feel, like I just feel like things aren't moving forward, and I didn't have the business sense that I do now. So I was like, got to take it to the next level. Like the only way forward is forward. So let's move forward. So I took that first spot, 115 square meters, and it stuck out like dodgeballs. Dad, we saw the solicitor. So thankful Mum and Dad paid for that first solicitor bill, because I was like, that is a rude shock. I'm in the real world now. Like $2,000 for a 30-minute like go over the contract. And then Dad said to me, just outside in Gosford, where we saw the solicitor, he goes, just be ready. Just be ready. You're in, yeah. And me, 19-year-old, going, yeah, Dad, like, don't worry about, like, 19 at the time, your egos everywhere. And it's like, no one can teach me anything. It's like, I've got it. And moved into the first space, started going through financing. So I learned a lot about getting your financing, insurance at a young age. And I had to grow up fast. But it didn't come without its lessons. Like, I moved in my first space on my high horse thinking that everyone was going to come, and quickly realised, like, people are going to leave. Your memberships are going to change. People aren't going to be happy with that.
Yeah.
I spoke to someone the other day. I reckon we've had about 500 members through the gym. I reckon I've trained in a group class environment within DMR with over 4,000 or 5,000 people over the years. We've run some big charity sessions. So I've had to swallow the pills. Like, people are going to leave, and that's okay, Jared. So that first spot, it taught me a lesson. It's like, I'm still trying to grow this business with outgoings now. You got to think you got outgoings now. So you've got, I think the first year we were looking at about 75K worth of outgoings. So you have to make money now. So the pressure's on. And that for that first couple of months in that first place, I just thought people were going to come. And I started to put a little bit more work in, and people take advantage of you as a young kid, and I jump on it like, this person's going to help me. So I started to spend more money on marketing, on this or that. And there was this one session that stood out to me. The place next door was up for lease. And there was one session that stood out for me. It was like a Thursday morning or something. And I turned up, and it was like 45 people in the class. We had to take it outside because the gym couldn't even hold it. I was like, shit, we don't move. But it was only one session. I was really reactive to that one session. Instead of putting in systems and processes like I could now, I was like, shit, it's time to move. Like, we're scaling and we're growing. So I moved in to a 290 square meter space, and it was huge. Like, it was huge. So you've gone from 75K of outgoings to 150K of outgoings now. More equipment, more finance, more pressures. Now you got to take on trainers as well. And I wasn't a great leader at the start. I'm slowly learning as well. And that first couple of months was all great, because I'd go out and I'd have my ego fed to me, because I'm the young 20-year-old that was killing it. And I'm like, oh yeah, like, the more outgoings, the cooler I am. Like, I used to tell people how many outgoings I had. Like, it must be a cool thing.
How much debt can I get into?
Oh, you must be making so much money. You're killing it. I'm like, oh, nah, bro. Like, but I was like, it was watering my plant without me realizing.
Yeah.
And I now look at it, I was like, I was just going reverse every day inside. The business got to the point, the business was on its way to, I had the opportunity of Bridgie coming in, Mads come in. We had some great trainers as well come in that have gone on and done amazing things. So it's been good to be able to, it was a really good feeling to be able to be that young kid that went for it, because I felt like people attach themselves to that. And I really love being able to help people and recognize their own potential. For example, I had a really great chat with Brits. But like, you know, business was booming. We're on track to turn over 400K one year.
Mm.
Like, you would think that you would be successful, but no. It was just, I was chasing $1 million and then 2 locations and 3 locations because the idea of success is money.
Yeah, and everything was external, and you know, internally you were going backwards.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting. We had a conversation with good friend Josh, who we all know very well, Josh Duff, who we're going to get on this podcast. And just one thing he said to me is like, wealth's in the heart, not in the pockets. And I was just like, fuck, like, and to be honest too, like, I feel like you just have to experience it to realize that. Like, I was the same thing. It was like scale, and office here, live by myself here, live on the beach, like great. Everyone's looking at you, and it's that thing too. It's that unspoken thing where you're like, nah, like, yeah, I mean, I do okay, but you know. But you're still giving off the vibe like give me that more, give me more validation, and it's just like, and then you get to a point where you're like, fuck, like I'm actually feeling pretty shit, and I'm actually just at a crossroads right now, whether to bring it back or continue to move forward and risk lifestyle, risk everything, So,
which is what you ended up changing location, didn't you?
Yeah, well, that led, I was there for about 18 months to 2 years. I've moved to plenty of gyms in my time now. I'm well equipped on how to move a gym. Maybe start a business around it. No, definitely not.
Jarred's how to move your gym.
Yeah. But we were in there and we brought on some more help. Taylor came on, another guy, Brad came on, Ditto came on. Ditto pretty much went full time. Like, it was pretty cool to be able to be that catalyst for Ditto to transition him out from where he was in air conditioning to give him the opportunity within the space, and he was on essentially a full-time wage. Like, it was kind of cool to know that you were supporting someone, but yet I wasn't still supporting myself financially either. No one realizes up until about 8 months ago, I was paying myself $200 a week. Obviously still living at home, but no one realized that. I wouldn't tell that to people, but because that's not cool. But I just realized that, like, things had to change. I knew that my rent was too much. I started to show the first signs of humility and just like, you don't know shit. In between that time, I signed up to a program called the Entourage. So, you know, now from a business standpoint, I feel like I'm quite equipped when it comes to business. I've been in the game now for a while, which makes me excited for the future. But I started to realize that we're not a PT gym. We're not an open floor gym. We're none of that. Like, we're not a boxing gym. We're not a CrossFit gym. We're designed purely to create classes for a community of people that want to grow. And I just had to come to that. So the 290 square meters didn't make sense once I made that realization. Once something pops up around the corner, which is, you know, cheaper, but also could see myself long term in there, rather than going, like, fuck, like, are we, like, it's either like I'm sacrificing my life or we move to a cheaper place, which allows me to just for a moment to come back and touch my soul. So about 14 months ago, when we were still in the big place, I started to realize that instead of doing 14-hour days, 16-hour days, that I had to take my work home. I started going for walks, and this was like the start of my spiritual journey. Like 14 months ago, I started to get in tune with myself, and I don't mean spiritual by like, you know, planting Buddhas in front of me and meditating to the towers come home. It's not about that. It was about just coming in tune with myself, going for more walks, starting to read a little bit more. A couple of books hit me pretty hard, and over the last 14 months, I've really, I had an amazing chat with my dad last night, and he said, you know, we get a little bit worried because we feel like your drive's gone. I said, it did go. My drive, it went. I'm still finding it back now. I'm still finding the balance between taking the foot off the pedal and when to put the foot on the pedal. Like, I still struggle with that, and I can easily tell myself the story that someone else has got the control of it, or we're in a cheaper place, so I don't need to handle it. So I'm still finding that out. But I had to take those big steps backwards, and they may have been big. They may have put the business at risk, but I had to. Otherwise, my family down the track, my relationship with Taylor now, everything would have just suffered and continued to suffer if I didn't take those appropriate steps back.
At the point of, I guess, if there is a point where everything was kind of felt like very overwhelming, very stressful, too much, you were lost in yourself. What did that look like for you in your relationships, in how you felt, what you did during the day? Like what how did that manifest?
I reckon it was about a month period where I wasn't sleeping more than 3-4 hours a night because I slept terribly. I would wake up tired, wishing I was still back in bed, starting to realise that this was a chore, not a passion. And the biggest thing that made me reach out to counselling or a psychologist, which I'm very, very fond of the guy that I had, because it's quite hard to find someone you relate with, and I had a great experience, was Taylor came home one night and she was saying, I had a chat with my PT, and my PT was like, what she said to Taylor, what does DMR stand for? And she explained it to her. And the PT just broke down. She's like, I was the second cop on the scene that night at Damon's murder. And just hearing, like, she said, like, for those cops that were on scene, that was the most tragic event they've ever been a part of. Mum and Dad were away and just burst into tears. I was just a wreck, and I knew that I hadn't surfaced that properly. And recently I've surfaced it again, but I started seeing a psychologist and everything came out. Like, I'm fucking stressed because someone will cancel, blah, blah, blah. Like, it's okay. Like, take a step back. And that was I guess that psychologist appointment, but we were starting Bridget Gap at the time. I went to the psychologist. This is how much we don't understand ourselves. I went to the psychologist, thought that I was like, I'm going to help myself, but I want to learn how to be a psychologist. It was that fucked. Like, I was so focused on, like, providing everyone else with everything that I didn't even zone my full attention in on me. Like, I was like, I want to learn how to be a psychologist as I'm sitting here because I want to be able to serve boys. We were serving boys with BB and I was opening up boys, but I wasn't right myself. So that was the early signs, though, as emotional intelligence, as what they would say, because I started to become aware of how I was acting and thinking and what emotions were surfacing when.
Yeah.
And they were the early signs of it. And, you know, I haven't really looked back since. It's just been a continuing journey.
And it always is, and it never ends. And you think you're ahead, and like you said before, it's like you got to step back. You got to step back sometimes, and you have to be honest. And that's something that's played a big role in my life lately. It's like, and what I wanted to touch on earlier, way back when we were talking about the resilience and stuff. It's like, what we don't realize, like, I swim with you now, I play basketball with you now, we go and play footy and whatever, and something that I never did a lot of, and so it's easy for me to look at you and go, well, fuck, like, he overtakes me, like, he can run laps around me in the pool or out in the ocean, and he can do all these things, and he can score heaps of points in basketball and get by me in footy. And it's like, well, fuck, like, but I don't know, like, the work that you've put in. And it's like, and it's the same with everything. It's not just sport, it's everything. And it's up to me to just get honest and be like, well, fuck, I haven't worked for it.
Yeah.
Like, so why do I deserve it? And so for me, it's like, it's a kick, but it's also an opportunity to go, you know what, like, I'm here.
Yeah.
It's my base. Now I just got to show up.
Pap had a really good story about that, about the $100 note when he went and spoke to the school. And they came back from lunchtime. He noticed they were down in the dumps and they were a little bit low on energy. He's like, so I've put $100 bill under one of your seats. And they all like, oh, what? He's like, in 3, 2, 1, I'm going to say, look for it. And like, they looked for it and no one found one. He goes, why would you didn't earn that $100 note? Because like, I feel like we make up the mind that we're like, we create a sad sub story that we deserve shit. We don't deserve shit. I don't deserve gym success at the moment, so I'm still finding my feet in it.
Yeah. Yeah. You deserve where you're at.
Yeah.
Yeah. About it.
That's
about
it. It's true.
What from here, like because there's been so much work and like I've been around you almost every day. So seeing that the work that you've put in and the amount of change that's happened, because you came from, especially with, you've got the learning difficulties, you've got the love for footy. I feel like you've had a pretty great environment in terms of not not a very brutal kind of environment, toxic environment with friendships and stuff like that. So I feel like you've been in an environment where a lot of people do accept going outside the box and the willingness to learn and stuff. But how did you manage to really step into that more inner approach? You'd call it the spiritual approach, and coming into reading more, getting in tune with yourself, the meditation. What do you think broke the stigma around that spirituality for you?
There's a couple of things. Mentors have always been a big thing. Jack DeLosa was someone that I still respect highly as a mentor, and I was a part of his program, and he was one of the guys that I took a leaf out of his book and went away by myself for 3 days. Like, just little things. Like, I feel like you slowly start to come more in tune with it. Taylor, as we know, is very big in that space. Yourself as well. So I think it was just reading books and listening to podcasts and just surrounding myself in that environment as much as I could, and understood that, like, I had to surround myself with people that thought the way I thought. So I was like, there's not really, at the time, I couldn't really see myself relating to many people. So I was like, I had to find people. Just because it's over a podcast doesn't mean that's not your environment. So I just drowned myself in podcasts and different videos and books and whatnot. The biggest book that had its biggest impact on me was The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. It made me look at the ego. And that was the first signs of emotional intelligence. I can now pull myself out, and I can pull myself out of this form, as they say, and I can take myself to a higher awareness and really recognize when my ego is surfacing, or very quickly after a situation when my ego's risen up, I can pull myself and go, fuck, Jarred, that was your ego. Like, so that book really allowed me to be present and try and start to just recognize the moment and for what it is, and that's all we have. We don't have a past and we don't have a future. All we have is this present moment. Everything's just a pile of stories, pictures, images and whatnot that we've created, which can work against us because now we have an expectation of what the future should look like based on what our past looked like. And I don't want my past to dictate how my future looks. So I'm just trying to be as present as possible, and trying to be proactive as possible rather than be so reactive. So coming back to your question, I don't think there was a specific moment where I was like, I'm a spiritual being. I think I just slowly started to surround myself with those people, follow those people on Instagram, listen to those words carefully. Jack, as we know, interviewed in one of our highest listened podcasts from an impact an impact perspective. He's quite grounded. Like, he does amazing work. Like, you feel like he's very aligned. And I think that I subconsciously picked up that I wasn't aligned to who I was, but I was picking up on other mentors around me. I was like, well, what are they doing? They're meditating, they're breathing, they're reading. So what are they doing? And I started to realize that, are they journaling? So all these things didn't happen overnight. I started meditation, I stopped. I started yoga, then I stopped. I started journaling, then I stopped. It wasn't for me, this and that. Now I just looked at it as a way to really just come back to myself and just come back to my center. But it's taking time, and no one should ever expect that this journey should happen overnight, because it doesn't. It's a slow process.
What do you do now to keep yourself present, throughout the day or from a day-to-day basis?
Morning I wake up and I meditate, as it may not be, I sort of zone in and out of sleep because it's quite early in the morning, but I don't look at a meditation, and no one should place an expectation on it that you should just be clear of thoughts. Meditation is about recognizing the thought, accepting it, and moving forward and coming back to your breath. So I'm just focusing on that at the moment. Very, very simple steps of meditation. Very, very new to it still. And I've been doing it for 12 months now, and I consider myself very, very new to it. To have that cold water immersion is the biggest thing. These swims have been incredible for me every morning. Haven't missed a day now for about 3 months, but I generally love it. I just now try and use my team as well, like that I have, so I don't have to take on 20 classes, 10 PTs, do the marketing, do the sales, do the admin, do the everything. Like, I'm just trying to be delegate, and journaling every day, read the Daily Stoic every day, try and read every day. I now have a night routine that I didn't do, that now I'm doing. So blue light glasses on, because sleep was a bad thing for me. So I'm starting to really take those hats off, or when I need to put my foot down, when I'm in that position, take the taps off between being boyfriend, girlfriend, and starting to learn when I can subconsciously take myself from being a trainer to being that, to being this. Like the other night, we had a massive boys session, and within an hour, I could wind down. So my night, I plan my day. I answer my questions in my planner. I plan my next day, so I'm going into the day with a plan. I then journal. And then I do a one.Jarred, which is a 12, 14-minute stretch. And every night there's candles lit around the room, and there's like the scent, a smell. And it's just telling my brain that, Jarred, it's time to switch off now. So just trying to really be conscious between the different steps of my life. And I use cold showers to transition myself. So I'll do it this afternoon. I'll train before the class happens, give myself some energy, but also then I have a cold shower, and that's my brain telling me it's ready to go from this to that.
Look, just on something you said before, a lot of people struggle with meditation. You know, it seems like it's a growing practice at the moment that we can fall in and out of. With your one.Jarred, with your meditation, how important do you think it is the setting that you're in?
Yeah, for sure. It's something that I learned in Atomic Habits. It's like you need to, which I'm still sort of creating with my workspace as well. Like you have different rooms for different things. Like I don't meditate in the bedroom. I don't read in the bedroom. I use that for sleeping. I use the lounge room for my yoga and my meditation. And I've actually recently just been working from down at Bellyfish in the mornings and so I'm trying to use these different settings and environments for different things. And getting outside the house a lot more, because you can get caught up in the house. So yeah, I definitely, setting that environment up that's relaxing is important, and doing things like blue light glasses so your brain's not triggered when you're trying to run down when you're watching TV. It's the ability, it tricks, when you don't have blue light glasses, having those lights, it tricks your mind into thinking it's daytime. So I'm finding I'm going to bed tired now, but I'm also putting in the time and effort. Like I've spent the money on it too. Like you have to invest in yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, man. People spend money to go out every weekend. Fuck. And then they complain they don't have money to put into themselves. It's interesting. Also, I just want to note that Bellyfish, if you're listening to this, I'm pretty sure we've spoken about you on many episodes.
Yeah.
We love you.
I don't know. Look, I don't ask for discounts, but, you know, anyway. It's a great, it is a great cafe. I have a few more questions. The first being, with business, running the gym, also Tay running her business, and obviously this huge personal development journey, which she has been on her own, plus you guys have been together during this, living together, all that kind of stuff. So there's so much going on. What has that been like for you? How have you managed that? How have you managed the relationship? Because, I mean, she's a legend.
Incredibly tough. Like, incredibly tough at times. You know, Tay's had her times. People closest to her would know, and they're not times that I necessarily align with. And that was happening at the start of the relationship. And, you know, there was many of times that we nearly broke up. And at the time, it was probably an indicator of where I was at in my life too, because I was struggling at that point, which wasn't good. But me and Tay at the moment, we just see right through each other. Like, we know when we're off, we just try and communicate. When we have an argument, we can pretty quickly pull ourselves out of it and talk about it as mature people. We don't go beyond surface level with me and Tay. Like, me and Tay did yoga with each other the other night. Like, there's definitely things that I need to work on within the relationship, like recognizing her a little bit more and showing up as a boyfriend. And as someone just for me to put my arm around her, for her to lean on. And for a long time, I've struggled being the hero, thinking I have all the knowledge in the world and I have to be a business coach, life coach, et cetera, et cetera. And I've realized that it has frustrated her quite a lot too. So I just need to know that my relationship with Tay is we're just there to grow with each other. No one's better than her. Tay has hugely inspired me to get within this space, and I'm reading her favorite book at the moment. Like, I don't recognize it enough, but Tay inspires me a lot. Tay, like, her drive, her passion, the way that she's so present within the moment, her giggle, her laugh, whatever it is, her aura, like, it really inspires me a lot. And there's a lot of things that I want to take out of Tay's book that I want to implement in my own life, in my own way. But I think the biggest thing with me and Tay is just being open and communicating. Like, you know, we both run our own businesses, and I've been able to help Tay change her membership around in a way that suits her, and we're starting to know each other's. We can start to reach out in a way that we're starting to communicate a little bit better, and it's a struggle. We're only 23, and I feel like we're quite knowledgeable for our age, and it's hard to take yourself out of that I'm your boyfriend girlfriend place and between coaching. So it's like we had a discussion the other day and said, Tay, like, don't stop talking down to me when talking about this. I'm coming to you because I want a little bit of advice. And I may be wrong, but try and communicate it in a way that can be effective and constructive. And it's the same way that I was with business. I was telling her what to do rather than getting an insight into her thoughts. So we're growing and we're learning, but we have a massive life in front of us. We have the goal to have kids, and you know, there might be an opportunity down the track that me and Tate create a program together. Who knows? But I think we're pretty happy at the moment. We're just trying to make sure that the time that we have together is quality. Not necessarily quantity, but quality.
Yeah. And I mean, too, like her coming into your business as well. Like there's a lot of crossovers there and being in the same industry and stuff. So it's huge credit to you guys, and Tay's an incredible person. So
We love you, Tay.
I love you, Tay.
We love you.
I love you, Katie.
We do
I
love
you,
Tay.
Katie, and I love you, Tay.
Tay's a special gem.
She
girl.
is.
She
She
is.
is.
And your relationship together, man, is something you should have credit for.
Yeah, and the reason I asked that was because, as it always is from the outside, it looks great.
Yeah.
And I see things here and there and whatever, but it is great to get an insight into that because I understand what business can be like and how taxing it can be on a relationship, and I've experienced that firsthand. So it's good. It is really good to.
I don't see it as struggles. I just see it as growth opportunities, and I think we both do too. Once you can change that, I don't see it as an argument, as a bad thing. We just see it as an opportunity to express ourselves a little bit more, to grow from it.
Yeah, when you're both on that page.
When you pull that self out, it's like, I hate you. I don't want to be with you. We're arguing. It's like, no, let's just get to the root cause of it.
Yeah.
Sure. What made you decide to do an Ironman? Because there was you went through that very ambitious, grandiose phase in sport, and then you got pulled back to go, okay, that was unhealthy, and look a little bit, obviously go on that inward journey to understand, have a lot more intention and a deeper reason why you do the things that you do. Why the Ironman? Because that thing's a fucking beast.
Yeah, it's not easy,
and give context as to what an Ironman is.
Yeah,
Give us numbers.
Let's tell everyone what an Ironman is.
3.8 kilometers swim, 180k bike, 42 kilometer run. So it's a fair
In a
race.
day.
12 hours. So I'm aiming for 12 hours. Now COVID hit. I was 9 weeks deep into the training. COVID hit. My whole training had changed to live
Mindset,
streams.
everything.
Everything. So I was getting to the point where I was getting quite fit, and I was leaning up too. And then everything hit. I had to change my training. I actually had deferred it to next year, thinking I'd deferred it to next year, and then I looked at the email. I missed the cutoff date, so I'm doing it this year. So I've got 12 weeks to go till the Ironman happens. But I think it was funny because I've had a massive journey through COVID, and before I was doing COVID, I felt like I had to do something to like get my resilience back, or I had to do something to get. So I'm just trying to be. I haven't completely ripped into the training yet because Saturdays are my bid rides and the gym's been reopening. In 2 weeks, all my Saturday classes will be essentially covered, so I can get out on those bid rides. But it creates discipline, and I'm still working that out. And because it's like 14 hours a week training. It's fairly intense, as you boys know. Like we start at 4:50 on a Sunday morning before the run. So it's discipline, and you have to have discipline. I think it really makes it surfaces your excuses, and it surfaces up your stories, and you have to face that shit. And you have to face it, and you either defeat it or you let it take control of you. And 2 weeks ago, the rain put me off. And I was like, I'm not fucking letting that rain stop. I'm not missing twice. I'm not missing twice. And both Sunday runs that we've been on now have been pissing down raining. And then we start the bridge of that run and then it stops raining. And I'm turning up like drenched. And it's been absolutely bucketing down. So But then it's also in a way when you do it by yourself, and I'll be locked and loaded within the next 2 weeks or so, but it's quite meditative when you're out by yourself. Like when you're out on a big run and you're 20 Ks into it, like you don't even hear the cars drive past. You're just in this space. And that's what I'm really looking forward to the Ironman, like crossing that line. Like it sounds so savage and sick, but I want to find my breaking point. Like I'll crawl over the line and I'll embrace that. I'll embrace that shit. So I am looking for my next challenge, and I think it's a way of trying to build my discipline back in my business and my life. But I've chosen something that is quite hard to do off the back of being inspired by a YouTuber that I watched, and I just feel like there's something about running through that red chute and crossing that Ironman line in front of your friends and family that like gives me goosebumps that I can't wait to do.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like you probably won't really be able to anticipate what's to come, but I have no doubt that you're not going to finish. If that translates to finish. Yeah, we will.
And that actually inspires me, knowing that there are people that want to come up.
Yeah.
So that also really inspires me to want to do it, and there'll probably be a few tears, but I don't think those tears will necessarily like the race itself. It will be a piece of piss, to be honest with you. Like there'll be times of hard moments, but it's the journey. It's when you're doing it by yourself. It's all well and good to show up in front of a crowd, but it's turning up for those 4 or 5 hour rides on a Saturday, and then backing up on a Sunday for a 2 hour run.
All for that finish line. It all comes together.
And it's also very tough because I run a gym, so I'm like, I just want to jump in and train with you Monday night.
Yeah. But doing something like that can completely mess with your training regime.
Yeah.
And completely put you out, for that following run that you have the next day. But I think it's such a quality attribute that you have that resilience. That getting comfortable with being uncomfortable. I think if everyone dove a little bit deeper with that, like it's in those tough times that you find out a shit ton about yourself. And you will, man. Like, you've done some tough stuff already, but when you're halfway through that bike ride, like 100 Ks in, 120 Ks in, knowing that you've got to run after it as well for another 42 Ks.
Yeah.
Man, I think it'll be
blisters on my toes. Man, my toes are already blistering up everywhere. Like cut feet. Like I'm limping. Like I can't. To be honest with you, I've done this shit before, and it gets to the point where I'm like so strong in the mind that my mind takes over, and I don't even feel the pain in my body. I'm like, I get excited.
That's it.
Like I carry people. Like I'll embrace the shit.
Yeah.
Like I'll embrace it for some reason. I don't know why. I just do.
Yeah.
I'm reading Art of Resilience, Ross Edgley's new book at the moment.
Yeah.
Man, that bloke, that's same thing. He's like swimming, doing this massive swim. He's got massive cuts on his neck, and he has to like duct tape it up and swim for like 12 hours straight.
Tongue's falling apart.
Yeah, exactly.
That's next level. That is next level.
But his, like you look at his approach to life and how he carries himself, and it's phenomenal, man.
He's not only resilient, but he's breaking fears. Like swimming through the night through the ocean.
Like 24 hours straight, he was swimming for some days. Like he swam around Great Britain. Like fuck.
Yeah,
man,
it's powerful.
What's the dream now?
To find out more about myself and to really challenge myself when something arises, if it's really what I want to do. It's like we said at the Bridget App. I said at the Bridget App event the other night, and I said we were going around what we wanted in our life, and I said that I want to find out so much more about myself and then serve from that place. So once I can embody who I am and learn more and more about myself, I'll slowly start to come out with messaging. People are starting to feel my authenticity now because I'm starting to align myself a lot more. I don't know. I think I have a voice that can spread to the masses, but I don't know if it's what I want. I don't know if I want to take away that lifestyle. Do I just not let it ruin my lifestyle as well? So don't know where that's on a lay. I do want to get into the coaching space. And when I mean coaching, like life coaching, eventually mentorship. I do want to work with high-level athletes from a mindset perspective. Like that's something that fascinates me. But to be honest with you, my next 6 to 12 months is focusing on growing the gym and to change that rebrand and to change that rename, which was a hard pill to swallow because there was a lot of external people that were like, oh, is you sure? Like it had so much meaning, like this and that and this and that. So that was a hard pill to swallow. But I think COVID's been the best thing that's ever happened to me because it made me, it forced me to slow down.
How did you let go? Because there's a lot of emotional attachment to DMR, the gym, the story, the history, the everything, and obviously on the back of that too, there's your family, there's people around you who were so attached to that as well. At what point did you let go?
So I had just done some work with my mentor and done a breath session, and when you do these things, you can't really articulate it, but I guess the way I've put it is I saw my traumas and my events that happened in my life flash before my eyes, and then I was left with like this image, and I felt cleansed. I felt like I accepted the situation for what it is, and I hold on to the memories, and rather than attaching DMR to a tragedy that happened within the family. Every time I, saw mum upset, every time I saw the person who killed Damon, every time I saw who's a family member, who didn't go to jail, so extremely hard. Every time I saw these people, for some reason I was attaching the tragedy that happened rather than the memories that happened, and I think I just had to accept it. And I actually went to Damon's grave and wrote him a letter, and I think that letter just cleared it for me. And to be honest with you, I go days now without thinking about him. And I don't mean that in a bad way, because I know he's just with me. I know that he shines through me. Like I show up today a part of him, because he's helped me design and create the person I am today. And I wrote him this letter when I went to his grave, and I was in hysterics, and there was people around me. I just dropped my head at his grave, and I was just like, I just felt this emotion coming up, and it's hard to lean into the emotion. I was like, just let it surface. And I just bawled my eyes out and bawled my eyes out and bawled my eyes out. And I just think it was my way of letting go. And I wrote in this letter, I said, little man, as I sit here, I write this to keep close to me, but also knowing you are looking over me, and I have your energy running through me. You would have been 19 this year, and I'm sure we would have had some beers together and kicked the footy around, or drove around in whatever Holden you would have had. Massive Holden fan. Your daddy's well, and I've been very lucky to be able to see him over the years a few times. What a man. I know the deep love he has for you. Crazy times in the world at the moment, but also a beautiful time. Obviously mid-COVID during this time. I write this letting go of everything that happened, letting go of the sympathy and letting go of the resentment. I accept everything. The moment is now, the past is lost, and the future is unknown. I forever carry the love, the PlayStation games, and the haircuts in the bathroom. I hold close to me the power you give me and the resilience you have built in me. I created an amazing business about you called DMR. Man, it was a journey, and I have learned an incredible amount. But now I am moving on. I keep you close, and I know you live throughout me, but I have grown, and it's a beautiful place I'm in. I'm so deeply intrinsically motivated, and I just want to better myself and continue to love myself. I'm now moving past DMR and moving on to the person I have created. For too long, I abused you in a way that needed to live for you and break through the shit because of you. But now I know I am you and you are me. We are one, and we grow. There is no separate identity. We are just one beautiful energy that has a charismatic feel about us. As I leave today, I leave as one. I leave accepting your death. I leave with a love so full of our times together, but now I welcome in your energy wholeheartedly. We'll go through this life becoming our best self. We place no expectations, but only focus on what we have control over, to a new beginning together. And I think that was just my way of letting go.
Yeah, I remember you sending me that message to say I completely let go. And that's so sometimes, like we were talking about earlier on in the episode, it's like sometimes it's hard to pinpoint a certain time when everything changes for us, but we do have those times when it's just like you just feel this weight lift off your shoulders, and it's incredible. I mean, it's very
it's a hard thing to be able to do, because there's tragedy that still runs through the family. There's hurt that still runs through the family. Just where I'm at the point right now is just trying to really stay in my lane and be in tune with myself as much as possible, and realise that not everyone thinks like I do. Not everyone's gone through what I have. Not everyone thinks like I do, and that's okay. I need to stay true to the beliefs that I have, the path that I'm going down. Still love everyone around me, and they shouldn't change my trajectory, and neither should they. But I shouldn't hold resentment if they're frustrated or they're just wanting the best for me. I just need to show them love. Recognize that. Thank you for showing love for me, but I'm happy with where I'm going. That's a hard thing to do. It's a hard thing to be able do that to the people closest to you. Like, to say I'm moving on to new things. And I have. I truly believe that I have all the knowledge in the world now within the gym space. Well, I've done my apprenticeship, and that was just my test for what's to come. And what's coming is just an embodiment of who I am. Planners, meditations, journaling, yogas, implementing everything into one place. Training is one area of your well-being in your life. And I want to change the stigma around training, because I believe that a lot of people use training as an outlet. Training should not be an outlet. Training should be a part of your life. So that goes to show to me that the type of people that we want to work with are the ones that want to grow and be okay opening up about insecurities and traumas. So then the gym is just a part of a part of who they are. Same with Brids. Yes, go to the gym to let off anger and whatnot. But you don't have, put it this way, who are you without the gym? If the gym was never there and health was never created, who are you? Are you still happy?
Yeah. It's interesting, like, I've met a few people who are huge guys, like massive guys, and they're just the biggest softy ever. Yeah. And it's like, and you see all this muscle packed on, and there's an intimidation factor. But at the end of the day, they're great at showing that side of them. A lot of people use strength training to hide insecurities a lot of time, like you said, as an outlet. A lot of people also don't. But at the end of the day, we're all just children. And we all have an inner child, and we all, like we said with Dan, we all just want to come home. Yeah. We all just want to take each other home, and regardless of what it is that we do, to pack those walls up, like, sooner or later we're going to have to unpack them. And
who are you when you're driving by yourself?
Who are you when you're driving by yourself? And the sooner we get that done, the better it is to move forward.
100%. It's deep work, but it's worth it.
Massively.
Last question.
Last one. I was thinking about this one throughout that podcast just then, and it's the infamous question that we like to ask is, that advice that you would give to yourself. I was thinking back to when Damon passed, but you might have been a bit young then, so you can decide, that advice you would give to yourself in that situation, or this dream of the rugby league player that you gave up and did a complete switch and really nailed it in the fitness industry. So I'll let you decide, or you can do both.
What advice would you give that younger self?
It was, we'll probably say that it was like when I was in the middle of the success on the outside in the gym, but hurting inside. I'm just going to keep it very, very short and very, very sweet and hopefully deliberate. All the answers are within yourself and within your heart. It's whether you decide to listen to them or not. And you just have to trust the intuition and know that just listen to that voice. Your intuition is who you are at your very core. Your heart is who you are at your very core. It's when the noise, like Dan said the other day on his podcast, when those noises and those outside influences come knocking on the door and telling you to do this and doing that, and you see the money coming in, and it's like, so my advice would be patient. You don't have to achieve everything before you're the age of 25. You're in a really good position. And just to find out more about yourself. And then live life from that place.
Intuition's a massive one. And it's something that's it's almost not quantifiable. Science can't really unpack it. And that's why no one trusts it.
Yeah.
Because it's like, well, there's no algorithm for it. There's no how-to guide of intuition, but everyone knows it's there. Everyone, it's that.
It's
thing.
yourself.
It's that fucking thing. It is.
It's who you are. This is who your vehicle for your life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Your intuition is your true voice. It's your true. That is you talking. That is you. That is you, and the person trying to articulate that is your ego.
Yeah. Yeah, or try to get in the way of that.
100%.
To analyze it and to create the story around it. We're just meat bags.
Literally.
We are. There's a soul there, and we're we're just surrounded by meat.
But to try and trust that as much as you can, because, you know, you look back, like we said before, looking back at connecting the dots. And there's so many times in my life where looking back, you know that was the intuition telling you or trying to guide you. But being a young, egotistical know-it-all, as most of us are through our teenage years, we don't trust it, do we?
Yeah, 100%. And it's hard to, and I'm like,
Very.
You don't wrap it up, but like it's a whole different topic. But just back yourself and just listen to that intuition and go for it. Like we've just seen the world crumble in every aspect possible.
Still is in some places.
What is safe? What is safe? What job's secure? You know,
Absolutely.
what is secure anymore? So just listen to your intuition and decide your path from there, and just keep listening to your heart and be aware of the emotions that you feel. I'm very aware of the emotions that I feel. Bridge Gap event at Private Studio was incredible. I've actually never felt myself more. And if I looked at the connecting the dots over the years that I felt like that, there's been a common theme. So now it's me recognizing that common theme and doing more of that. Because it lights me up.
Yeah.
It's not a hard equation.
No.
It's back to my year 6 math test when I could speed through it.
Yeah.
It's very plain and black and white and right there in your face, but we make it so complex. How do you do this? How do I do that? How do I quit? How do this?
But that experience allows you to realize
100%,
that.
everything logical takes us out of actually going through with it. So
Love it. Bro, thank you.
Thank you for coming all of this way
Yes.
to jump on mine and Cooney's podcast.
Yes.
We do appreciate it massively.
I'll take that. No, bro, look, I did set an intention very at the beginning, and I did say it. I wanted to learn something new, and I've learned a fuckload. So appreciate you. Appreciate
Appreciate you both.
you.
and you boys will be on very soon too.
We will.
We will make an appearance.
Very excited.
I'll have to do my hair.
I'll wear a hat.
Cool.